Welcome to a broadcast of the recent Lorain County Commissioners' General Meeting. Unless otherwise announced, meetings are held Wednesday morning at 9:30 at the Administration Building, 226 Middle Avenue, 4th floor, downtown Elyria. These are public meetings and you are invited to attend. Agendas are posted prior to the meeting at www.loraincounty.us. Click on Departments to see the Commissioners page, then click on View Agenda.
Good morning, everyone. If you'll please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, everyone. This is the Lorain County Board of Commissioners meeting for Wednesday, June 5th. Boy, we're already into the 6th month of the year. Wow. Our inspirational word for the day: don't despair over your shortcomings. Start over each day. You make spiritual progress by continually beginning again and again. And we don't have a dog today.
We have no dog today.
No dog today. Okay.
Bad weather.
Bad weather.
But you can go down and visit them this weekend.
That's right.
Check them out on Facebook, too.
There is a public hearing for the second CDBG at 9:40. Under resolutions, there are no investments. Appropriations.
So move.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Lundy.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Ms. Sueda.
Aye.
Transfers.
So move.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Lundy.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Ms. Sueda.
Aye.
No advances, no repayments, requisitions.
So move.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Lundy.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Ms. Sueda.
Aye.
There's no travel, bills.
So move.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Lundy.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Ms. Sueda.
Aye.
Authorize various personnel actions indicated on the summary sheet for employees within jurisdiction of Lorain County Commissioners.
Okay, that would be our County Administrator, Jim Cordes. I never read about him in the newspapers. And just
More in the paper today?
No, just
Oh.
joking.
You missed it?
I was just looking to see who punched us today. I didn't see anybody. I was a little surprised. Got a little shock, a little fear there. He was feeling underappreciated. Nobody hit us. I do have a few personnel actions, potential hire and maybe an economic development. The collection center, I want to talk about some apps at 911. Ongoing labor negotiations. Again, we're not really in negotiation, but I want to start looking at the summer. We have a couple contracts coming up. Specifically, will be the auto workers and Job and Family Services this summer. And also, I talked with Chris Martinez over the steelworkers contract with the auditor's office, and some and 911 will be coming up later in the year. So if we have time, we'll drift into those conversations. Also, potential purchase of several parcels of real estate that we've been having conversation. I got some information back on those, sale of real estate that we're working on. That has to do with some stormwater projects. So people always wondering why we're talking about buying real estate, small parcels here and there that we've been cobbling together for stormwater projects that may not see the light of day for several years, but that we need to slowly be procuring real estate for. Because somebody did ask me, how come you guys are always talking about buying real estate? So these are small lots in certain areas till we get enough of them to do a big project. We don't necessarily play our hand at that because we don't want speculation on that land. So I think at this time, since somebody asked the question, I should really define that a little better, why we seem to be talking about real estate quite a bit. Also, we have one pending legal matter, and all of those topics are allowable under the Sunshine Act for executive session discussions. I'd ask at the conclusion of our regular board meeting today, we go into executive session and we discuss those matters that I've explained. Thank you.
Accept the withdrawal of the 46.240 acres muni-owned land annexation in accordance with the Ohio Revised Code 709-14 and 16 to Grafton Village for Mean and Grafton Townships.
So move.
Second.
Discussion.
Yeah, this was the issue that came up last week, and Grafton has withdrawn. Okay.
They'll be back.
I just think it's temporary. I think
Yeah.
we have some issues to work out
Sure.
with regard to that consent agreement.
Courts.
Well, maybe they can work it out between them, but it doesn't seem likely. It's probably heading back to the court for a clarification.
Okay.
Hopefully that's what they do.
Mr. Lundy.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Ms. Sueda.
Aye.
We're going to continue the acceptance of the report from the engineer in the Grafton Road outfall, Carlisle Township.
So move.
Second.
And I'm looking to schedule this on June 25th, and then we can continue again at that time. We already have to accept the engineer's report on Mapleview, so I might as well do it on that day too.
Yeah, we should have the bids back by then, right?
June
Did Don say
14th,
we'd have them
correct?
back? Okay,
Yeah.
so we
Yeah,
should have the
they've-
bids back, and we'll see what the cost is. This is the one we compromised with their engineer on.
For pause.
For pause, and if the cost comes in as their engineer has anticipated, which would be similar to the cost of the way we wanted to do it, then we can proceed ahead. There's some unknowns here, so we're giving them the benefit of the doubt, and only the bids will tell the complete story. So I'm kind of interested to see how this all plays
Me
out.
too, because it might trickle over to Mapleview possibly if we can, hopefully, maybe.
Well, we always keep an
Jerry's
open,
like, no.
we always keep an open mind. I think Mapleview is going to be a very challenging
Sure.
I know, but some of the
process.
ways we were working on the Plaza property, we may be able to do it Mapleview.
The application might work.
Yeah.
You think boring's out at
Yeah,
Mapleview?
I'm hoping,
Mm.
where it's so tight,
I don't think
there's
we.
no way to really
The-
get
the
any
prob-
equipment in
the pro-
there.
The problem with Mapleview and Borings, Commissioner, is that Mapleview's already an open ditch. With the plazas, we already have submerged tile.
Right.
So you really can't bore in an open ditch.
Right.
It's already, so if we had some tile that was failed, and rather than digging up the tile and replacing it, we were going to go under the tile or go actually through the tile and then replace it or reline the tile, we could bore, but you really can't
You don't
bore
need
in
to
an
bo-
open,
but
you
just
can't
need to
bore
put
in an
tile
open.
in, basically. Just put the tile in there.
But you still have to dig to put the tile, you still have to
Right.
dig
Get
to
the
put the
water out
tile
of
in.
there. Right.
So you really can't bore in an open ditch. The whole area is almost open ditch. Now, it's
Yeah.
silted, but not enough where you could bore into the sill. So I really don't think boring's going to be an option there. It's, unfortunately, the water course is open. You can close it with
Tile.
placing tile, but it's not silted or deep enough to think that we could actually go in there and put tile in there. So unfortunately, I don't think we can consider it there.
Darn.
Well, it'd be nice if we can resolve the other one.
But we resolve this
Yeah.
one, and then hopefully
One at a
Mapleview
time.
won't take that
Right.
many years as the Plaza's situation has.
Jerry, did you need to give any legal explanation on this continuation?
No, other than, like Jim says, we're waiting to see if the bids come in at a price that'll enable us to go forward with our, not quite sure it'll be done by then, but we decided to go ahead and, so yeah, we're just continuing this so we
Okay.
can get a full report from the engineer.
Okay.
And then I will put together, and I'm working on an agreement
Okay.
that will be in place.
Okay.
Mr. Lundy.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Ms. Sueda.
Aye.
Accept the settlement agreement and release with Reil LLC regards to the airport hangar.
So move.
Second?
Discussion.
You
Is
wanna-
there any, well, I mean, are we legally able to discuss this at this point? We're
can
just
discuss it.
accepting the
Jerry,
agreement,
Yeah.
Jerry?
Finished it up, if you want to.
Yeah, it's just, we have been going back and forth with this,
Tenant.
with a disagreement with the
Former tenant?
former tenant, I guess is,
Let
although
me,
they don't consider themselves a former tenant, they believe they're still
I guess
there,
the primary concern for the county administrator and the assistant county prosecutor, I think is important for the public to know, is that, there used to be a airport board that operated over there, and there's some agreements that have, kind of tied our hands for a long period of time. Maybe you
would
wish
you like
to
me to start
elaborate.
at the beginning and give a 45-second
Well, no,
overview?
yeah, well, 45 seconds would be
second,
good, not
45
45 minutes.
Probably could take 45 days.
Yeah. it could be.
We've spent
The,
45 days.
This was a 20-year lease with a 20-year option to renew that was on its second 20 years. It belonged to a company called Zane, it was Zane Pritz. And they did repair work on airplanes. About 6 years ago, they sold out the hangar and the lease to another organization. And at that point, they wanted to do another extended lease. The county refused because under these leases, when those leases expire, the county owns what's on the ground lease. You initially do a ground lease, they build the building, everything's good, they get access to the taxiway, the runway at a very inexpensive ground lease, and then within 20 to 40 years, you get a capital building, and if they stay, they rent the building and the ground lease back from you. That's how you build your buildings at the airports. Most small airports, that's the way they do it. So then when the 5 or 6 years go by, they decided they wanted to, first they said they wanted to extend it 20 years under the terms of the contract, but we remembered that they didn't have another 20 years, so that point didn't work. Then they got pretty hostile with us, and they demanded to reduce the ground lease and keep the hangar, and we said, no, that's not going to work, and it got dustier and dustier from there, and then they threatened to tear the hangar down and leave us with nothing on the ground. It wasn't friendly. And the unfortunate part is the lease was written by the prior airport authority 40 years ago, and it did not insist that the existing structures had to be maintained on the ground. It just said that anything remaining at the end of the lease was ours. So we got into a battle of what was going to remain. So they were sending people in there trying to rip the building down, and we got into a big fight over that. And all because we just simply wanted them to honor the lease and then rent the building back at a reasonable cost from us in addition to the ground lease. So we've settled. And we now own a hangar at the airport. I believe we're going to be able to lease the hangar. They don't want to lease it. But we stood our ground on this, and I believe we made a good decision on this, and we have an asset at the airport that will hopefully produce some revenue. But I'll be working on that.
Some of those leases, 50 years with a 50-year
They're terrible
renewal,
leases, Commissioner. They're terrible.
ridiculous.
These leases are supposed to produce a capital resource for the community with a responsible lease period in time. When you write a 50-year lease with a 50-year renewable on a building that has a service life of 30 to 40
Yeah, what do you
years,
get?
they're in perpetuity. You end up with nothing.
Right,
And they're self-serving.
that's what they were.
Then they're bad. But we didn't do this. This is something
We inherited.
that we inherited in 2006 when it became apparent that we needed to do away with the airport board and shift control of the airport. But by the time that occurred, they had eviscerated the FBO, sold off all the equipment, every three-legged chair, every socket, they had run it really into the ground. And right now, we were given, back in 2006, we were given between $650,000 and $850,000 a year to the airport from the general fund. Since 2006, the end of 2006, the general fund has only put $50,000 into the airport, and occasionally a few 10,000s for match money with the FTA when there's been FAA, when there's been some additional grant money, and we've been able to run that airport at the same level with that $50,000. Now, albeit we're growing corn on the roof and doing all kinds of things, and we've raised all different kinds of revenues, so we've actually reduced that from, at the height of 850,000 down to 50,000 consistent. We have not asked for any additional money,
Right.
and we've entered into a private-public relations under a contract, and we have the FBO being run privately, and we have the grounds being taken care of with a company. Contract's a little stale. I need to be working on that. They've asked to work on it. It's tired. It's expired, but we're on a month-to-month. I need to get to that. But we've saved millions of dollars under the arrangement since 2006. And let me repeat that number, millions. Yeah. And still have the airport and the same services, and it's not overrun, and we're still bringing in the FAA money and doing everything we're supposed to do out there. But everything was depleted under the old authority. And so this was actually the best lease out of all the bad ones. Would you agree with that, Councilman? This was the best out of all the bad ones.
Best of the worst, yeah.
And even it was not good. But now we have the hangar. I inspected the hangar. It's in fairly good condition. There's opportunity there. But sooner or later, I'm hopeful that something will develop at the airport. I want to repeat the number. Only about $50,000 of general fund money makes its way to the airport, and occasionally some small match money for grants that bring in several hundreds of thousands.
Usually 90%.
Actually, it's not. Sometimes it's 95%.
95%, right.
We're required to do that maintenance. We don't take that federal money. We still have to do the maintenance. They come in, they give us a failing grade or a D on the pavement or the taxiways, and they still make us do the work on that. They'll sue us into compliance. So we still have to do that match, still have to do that work for 20 years.
Every time we take
Every
money.
every time we take money, we have to do the work for 20 more years. Okay, so
They got us.
They got us. They got us. And
And we can't close it, we already tried.
right. Why am I belaboring this? Because we have to keep repeating this to folks, because a lot of folks out there don't understand this very difficult relationship, because we're a reliever airport for Hopkins. We're designated as a reliever, And they're going to make us honor all of those agreements that were in place long before you people took over as the commissioners, as the Board of Commissioners in Lorain. And tomorrow we stop taking federal dollars to maintain the airport. You still have to maintain it to the exact standards for the next 20 years before you can do anything differently with it. So we're doing the best we can, but hopefully with the hangar we're able to generate a little bit more revenue for the airport and do a little bit more work and be a little bit more self-sufficient.
I just wanted the public to be aware and the taxpayers to be aware how our hands are tied because of some, well, extremely irresponsible leases that were agreed to by the airport board at the time. And, you know, it ties our hands in a lot of circumstances, and it makes it very difficult when these things come up for renewal. But I think it's also important for people to understand how the funding works over there at the airport, and we can never do enough to educate the public about that.
Well, people look at the budget online and they see a budget of sometimes between $650,000 and $1.2 million, depending on the grant money we're getting for the different things that we're working on out there. And they're like, oh, you're wasting $1 million at the airport. The biggest bulk of that is FAA money that comes in. Some years we get $300,000, $400,000 in grant money. Some years we get a minimum of $150,000. Some years we roll up the $150,000 for different projects. But we make about $150,000 growing corn, and we got revenue from fuel sales. So what I want them to understand is that that's all revenue generating at the airport and outside grants. The $50,000 from the general fund, it's not inexpensive money, but as large as a general fund is, you can see $50,000 isn't as usually consequential as the $650 to $850 that we're getting 13 years ago. 13 years ago. So it's hard to read that budget online and understand how we've squeezed that to push the money back to where it was supposed to be and still manage to keep it where it's operating at.
Commissioner, I just...
Had a $100,000 almost director out there that didn't even live in Lorain County that took a car home, and I mean it was ridiculous what was going on out there when he took it over.
They had a airport director, an assistant airport director, a business manager, a marketing director, a maintenance director, 2 maintenance people, a groundskeeper, okay, and they had an FBO operator. So I don't know what the other people.
And many of them had leases, didn't they?
Well, the board people all had planes, yeah. But these was the airport staff.
Jerry?
I would just also note that the tenant, although I haven't seen it, says he had an appraisal done that was like 5-6 times more than what we're paying for it. So the tenant believes we're just getting a super bargain here.
Okay.
Lundy Air.
And then there's reality. Okay.
That's what we're reading on the blog now, Lundy
right,
Air.
Right, yeah.
Mr. Lundy.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Ms. Sueda.
Aye.
Under Common Pleas, adopt probation, approve a justice reinvestment and incentive subsidy grant agreement addendum in the amount of $63,000 with the Ohio Department of Rehab and Correction for Community-Based Correction Division of Parole and Community Services, Bureau of Community Sanctions Justice Reinvestment and Incentive Grant. There is no cash match required, and the grant will be increased by $6,000 from $84,001 to $147,001.
So move.
Second? That doesn't sound right.
It's 63.
Okay.
I left the 3 out there.
All
but
right,
it was
okay.
Yeah. Mr. Lundy.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Ms. Sueda.
Aye.
Under the Sheriff, enter in a final renewal in Amendment Number 4 with Airmark Food Service to provide all inmate meals. Amendment is to reflect to align the CPI pricing index and length of renewal period effective retroactive May 1st, 2019 through April 30th, 2020.
So move.
Second?
Discussion.
Only discussion I had was I discussed this with the Assistant County Prosecutor. The contract actually read commencing May 1. Our resolution here says effective retroactive May 1. So I just want to make sure that legally we're good.
Yeah, that's okay, Commissioner.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Lundy.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Ms. Sueda.
Aye.
Do you want to do the public hearing?
You want to do
Yes.
public comment first, or no?
We could do the public hearing since
Okay.
it was scheduled prior,
All right.
and then we'll come to public comment.
I have, Commissioner, before you go into the public hearing, I had some bids that I needed to do today, and I don't
Okay.
see them on here. Did you get the bids for the DH? We had 2 bids.
They put, it's on the requisition.
They're on a rec. They went through on a rec. Okay, so we did it by rec, not by resolution. So we're good. on those?
Right?
Okay.
For Crown, right? Yeah. For Crown.
So those went through?
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to make sure, because I lost track of them yesterday. Okay, see you, Jody. All right, just wanted to make sure. That's why Jody's here, so, all right,
Linda
so
here?
we're good to roll on that.
Or is Don doing?
All right, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you,
That's okay.
Commissioners. Okay.
Are you doing? Okay, we have, with the second hearing on the Community Development Block Grant, and this is not Linda, this is actually Don Romancak, our Community Development Director. I was going to say, you don't look like Linda today.
Thank you. Good morning, Board. Today is a good day. Finally get a chance after several months of working with our local communities to let you know the results of applications and what we're proposing to send down to Columbus for our block grant annual allocation. This public hearing is going to be conducted on behalf of the board in order for us to make that application to the Community Development Allocation Program grant for PY 2019. First public hearing was held on March 13th, where the program and general guidelines of the application were explained. Also during the presentation, the eligibility requirements were discussed. During the second public hearing, I'm going to present the grant requirements and proposed projects. The guidelines for the applications are that Lorain County is permitted up to 20% of the allocation to administer the program and for our fair housing program. The county may apply 15% of the total allocation for public service projects. For us, that has typically been our Meals on Wheels program. Lorain County is limited to no more than 6 projects total, but administration and fair housing are not included in our project count. And the county is no longer required to provide a project within a certain city. We have finally met our obligations to previous cities that had received their own allocation, Amherst, North Ridgeville being the latest. The activities must meet one of 2 national objectives, either benefiting low and moderate income persons or addressing slum and blighted areas. The Program 19 grant is a 2-year grant cycle. This is still relatively new. This is the second time we're going through a 2-year grant cycle. This year's allocation is $507,000. I've got good news for a change. We actually saw a little increase of $30,000. We're still nowhere near we were at when I started this job, but at least we saw a little bit of progress in the funding. And again, these are funds that the federal government provides to the state, and then the state, through their formula, breaks it up to us. We did send notification and funding request applications for the availability of the funds to townships, villages, small cities, our main streets, our public service providers, and organizations in Lorain County in February, February 22nd, 2019. And we received 9 requests for funding back. The applications that were submitted were reviewed for eligibility guidelines and for compliance with the national objectives. And today we'll be going over the recommended projects. There's our desire at the end of today for the board to approve a resolution authorizing the application to be submitted to the state. The submission proposals, the proposed projects and community development allocation grant program that we would recommend the board to consider funding are a water line and street replacement activity in Sheffield Lake to replace a water line and street. It's a low moderate income area-wide benefit with $183,970 of community development block grant funds to be allocated for this. There's a substantial local match coming from Sheffield Lake. A park improvement in Oberlin to improve and rehabilitate the Spring Street Park. Again, a low and moderate income area-wide benefit. We've recommended $61,530 to go towards this project. Oberlin 2 is providing a large local match from their general fund. A street improvement in Sheffield Township to replace Clifton Avenue. This is also a low mod income area-wide benefit at $125,000, and Sheffield Township was actually able to come up with a $50,000 local match as well on that. For public service, we are looking to recommend funding the Meals on Wheels program for Neighborhood Alliance, meeting low and moderate income limited clientele for the maximum 15% set aside, which is $85,500. Our fair housing program would be $18,000 to continue to provide the fair housing services that we are required. We would enter into a contract with a service provider to assist us with those. And then administration would be $96,000 to administer the program and provide the materials and whatnot to be able to operate the program. This would include salary reimbursement, supplies, travel, training. All of these activities above must be completed by December 31st, 2021. We're already into the 20s. We are also looking to provide additional applications for set-aside funds that were presented as an allocation request. The Village of Grafton is looking to improve their community room to meet ADA compliance, which would meet the national objective of limited clientele. This amount would be for $75,000, and also a parking facility within the downtown Village of Grafton, construct a new parking lot. This would be a low, moderate income area-wide benefit. These two would be grouped together and submitted under our downtown revitalization grant program to the state. And then we are also proposing submitting a critical infrastructure grant program on behalf of Wellington in their fire district to improve their fire station. We are continuing to work with the fire chief and the administrator out there to put that project together. So with that, if there are any questions or comments from the board or the public, I'd be happy to answer them.
I guess the only one I have a concern about is the parking lot. Is this parking lot adjacent to the community center?
No, it is actually located in the downtown area, and they would actually be expanding it by a couple of spots and improving ADA accessibility. And the proposed project cost of $75,000 would be matched with approximately $25,000 of local funds. And this is a competitive grant across the state of Ohio. It's not a part of our allocation.
Okay.
So we are working to submit and try and bring additional funds to the county and to our local communities through these other means.
I'd like to add, I think it's, I'm happy to hear about the funding for a neighborhood alliance. Commissioner Kokoski and I were there yesterday, and their numbers, their need numbers have grown tremendously. I think they've gone from something like 40?
80 to 400.
80 to 480. They used to have a waiting list of about 80 people, and they're closing in on 500. So, and they run a really tight operation there. Their meal delivery cost comes in somewhere between $9.50 to $10 a meal. That includes transportation, staffing, and the food. So, happy to hear they're on that list.
Where we bring them in for the Meals on Wheels this year?
We brought them in at $85,500.
Is that the maximum?
That is the maximum.
As we've explained before, we can only do a percentage of
15%.
all of the service funds. You know, we had this conversation with the Office on Aging just recently. You know, one of the things, and I wrote a note on top of all the, you know, that stack of notes that only you guys get to see in my office, the notes on top of notes. You know, I really want to convene a meeting of everybody that's doing Meals on Wheels in Lorain County and have a chat because there's a lot of programs going on, and I think they're all doing a great job, so I don't want to misrepresent that, but this duplication.
I don't know that they're duplicating, though. I asked
Right.
a question yesterday, and according to at least Neighborhood Alliance, they do talk to each other. There's people that have, you know, emergency needs that they take care of, and people that they have, you know, on their list at all times, but they do talk to other agencies like the one that you mentioned.
The
so-
aging.
Yeah, I
Office
just
on
think
Aging.
Yeah.
maybe we just sponsor, you know, a sit down.
Sure.
Maybe
See how
have a
they
lunch.
collaborate.
They're actually having
See.
one, they said, right? They're having a,
That's just their that's their regular. meeting for Neighborhood Alliance.
For
their
Neighborhood
board.
Alliance.
No, but I thought they were gonna sit down with all the other agencies and have like a discussion about
Well,
trying to
we're-
make sure
we're-
that they aren't
Yeah, we're
duplicating
gonna.
I think
we're gonna-
that'd be-
We're gonna bring it together.
Yeah.
You know,
Good.
we'll just have a chat, because we fund Meals on Wheels through Title 20, we fund it through CDBG, so we have a lot of money invested.
Right.
The Board of Commissioners has a lot of money invested in this program, and so we do have a vested interest to see that there's some efficiencies in the program.
Right.
But, you know, about 2 years ago, Commissioner, we brought an additional 50,000 into that program. I'm still trying to figure out where we put it. Remember, we had some conversation about that, and, you know, and was Title 20 funds, but it must have went to, I thought it went to the Office on Aging,
So
but it
did
must
I.
have went to the Community Alliance, because the Office on Aging indicated they didn't see that fund. So we got a little confused on that. But
I was at the Title 20 overview meeting when they were considering how they were doing all the allocations. And Neighborhood Alliance, for some reason, was not aware of that meeting, so they did not attend.
Well, traditionally, they've gotten their funding through the CDBG funding, and Office on Aging's gotten it through Title 20. So it's just interesting, and the need is going to get bigger, as the Office on Aging indicated, how the population shift is
Yep.
initially going up, and then it's going to spike, and then it's going to move down a bit. So something to watch for us. It's a great program, but we're capped.
Yes.
Thanks.
Great, thank you.
Any comments from those in attendance regarding CDBG? Seeing none. So this will require an
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
I always forget that. I'll now make the motion at this point then to close the public hearing.
I'll second.
Mr. Lundy,
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mrs. Sueda.
Aye.
Thank you.
Did you update the stickers?
Good question. Probably not. I'll have to double check.
Let's update those stickers.
You got it.
And now at this
Thank you.
time, this would require board action. So I'll make a motion that we accept the
You got action.
CDBG program presented here for, is this for 2020?
19.
2019?
Second.
Any further discussion? Mr. Lundy,
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Ms. Sueda.
Aye.
Okay. And now we should be at public comment. Anyone wishing to comment? Yes, ma'am. If you just please approach the podium there. Give us your name, where you live, and you have 3 minutes.
Is this on?
There's the
Yes.
yes, it's on.
Okay.
Mhm.
My name is Carol Hobert, and I live at 440 Olivet Drive in Elyria. And I'm here today because I found out at our city council meeting on Monday that the commissioners are not working with the city on the Amtrak project. Time is running out, and the money for this project will be lost. I would like to see all parties working to get towards a resolution to get this project completed. Elyria is the hub of the county. He and Ely set it up that way, and that's why this project needs to be completed. And I also am a little confused. I would kind of like to understand. I talked to Matt Lundy at one point quite a while ago, and I think your meetings, it would be nice if maybe once in a while the meetings would be in the evening, because most people work during the day, and it makes it very hard for them to come to meetings. And you don't find out what's going on if you don't go to meetings. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you. Any other public comment this morning? Okay, seeing none. We have commissioners.
Cordes.
Mr. Cordes.
You just want to skip right over them.
No, yeah, okay.
That kind of morning, I suppose.
Yeah,
We're going to have a very busy
we will.
session, because we didn't get to a lot last week, and I
Right.
do have to leave early today, and I'm gone next week. I think you got the email, so I'll yield to council.
Do you want to talk about the train station issue?
I'll talk about anything you...
I'd like for you to just elaborate a little bit. I only got one phone call yesterday from one of the council people regarding the train station. Once I had some dialogue with her, she fully understood the situation. So I think you've been on it from day one, and I think you should elaborate why we're not going forward with it.
If you give
Well,
us
first
an
of all, the
executive
project ended,
summary.
we're done with it. We've been
Right.
done with it since last fall, and I believe council communicated that to the mayor. I believe Commissioner Lundy communicated that to the mayor personally, in a meeting. I have no idea why she doesn't understand English. So she can continue to talk about a project that's been finished.
And the reason why it's finished is because by law, we are not allowed to have an open indemnification with Norfolk Southern. So it's kind of out of our hands. We would have loved to have the project. We had a project manager in place. We had the concrete forms ordered, and then they threw another roadblock in front of us that we can't overcome.
I have been advised by counsel that we have an impasse on the contract that was a fatal impasse. We were at bid, the bids came in, we accepted the bids, but we did not issue a notice to proceed. We were put under specific timeframes by the FTA in order to continue our funding stream. And we met those stringent timeframes over a holiday period to be able to progress this project. They were very demanding timeframes, but we achieved those timeframes while the contract negotiation was going on. I never seen Mr. Innes more frustrated in my entire 26 years with him than he was with Norfolk Southern. Am I overstating that a little bit? Maybe, but it was a very bad period, yes or no? Okay? Every time we thought we were done, we were undone. Every time we thought we reached the finish line, it was like Groundhog Day. It started over again. It was just much like your inspirational quote, start the day over again. Well, it started over again.
You actually listen to those, huh?
And
You
I may
inspired.
not look like I listen, but I listen.
I know you do.
Meanwhile, we concurrently ran many processes at the same time with an ambitious goal of being successful towards the finish line. And so all of these concurrent processes were rushing to completion with the expectation and optimistic view of completing this contract. And we reached these fatal defects. And along the way, they kept adding additional work elements that were not in the original scope of work.
Adding another track.
Adding work on bridges that the city's been trying to get Norfolk Southern to fix for 30 years. That were not in the original scope, and every time we tried to figure out how to fund that work, they came back with something else. And it generally, the conclusion was they were just going to continue to load on until we gave up. And these are the things that broke the back of the project. And we have all the documentations, we have all the email. I don't care how much Mr. Edwards tells Miss Brenda these other things. She was told these things, and she wants to believe other truths because she wants to do something. That's fine. Okay? This project came to an end. We talked to the FTA. We talked to FERC. We talked to Washington, D.C. We talked to Sheriff Brown. We talked to everybody until we were exhausted. And we got nowhere. So we made all these efforts. We had outside legal counsel. We had everybody look at this. And at the end of the day, we were not able to get past these fatal defects. The State Attorney General's office has issued a ruling that we cannot indemnify these people. And we called FERC and said, how are you ever going to do another rail project going forward in the state of Ohio? You got to do something with this. This is stymied any project in the future. We've told them that. We've told the Attorney General's office that. They have, in effect, come up with a term and condition of the contract that precludes this happening. We asked Amtrak to take on the indemnification clause for them to indemnify, and we would work vis-a-vis them. They initially said they would, only to come back, within 45 days, and then withdraw their agreement because they didn't want the indemnification problem. All right? So we thought that possibly Norfolk Southern, Amtrak would do that.
I forgot about that.
Then Norfolk came up with another great term. They only wanted to give us a 5-year ground lease for the facility on the track with renewables. We're going to spend $11 million with a 5-year ground lease with the possibility of renewables? I don't think so. I mean, this has
They just didn't
been,
want the project.
look, this is their heaviest freight rail right here, and it's double stack. In some ways, to be honest with you, I don't necessarily blame them. This is where they run the bulk of their freight. The reason that Elyria has elevated freight is because they were running so much through it, 100 years ago, that there were so many accidents coming through Elyria, they had to lift the trains off the ground, so to end that. And that's some history that goes way back, and it's still to this day almost their #1 freight corridor. So they're worried about their business. Now, would I like them to work a little better with passenger rail? Yes. But their main concern is their passenger service, not their freight service, not their passenger service. So they don't particularly want passenger service up there, but there's certain things they have to do by law with Amtrak. I don't want to get into the Amtrak, Norfolk Southern freight passenger argument. We're not going to be able to win it. We're very small compared to all the leverage and power that these folks have. We've tried.
Could you also explain, because some people have made the argument that they were able to do it in Sandusky and do it in Toledo. Well, Toledo's been around for a long time. I'm trying to get some better pictures on what that train station looks like.
There.
Exactly, and an off-track that can load passengers. The other thing is that with Sandusky, you literally load at street level.
Right.
The difference with our project, and maybe you can elaborate, is that our project requires a ramp that goes literally above and over the tracks. And also during the construction period, this was still going to be a functioning track.
Sure. We have to build while they're moving double stackers the whole time. And when we started designing the project, we originally thought years and years and years ago that we would come up through the tunnels. Norfolk said, no, that we can't use the tunnels, we can't come up through the tunnels, which required to come up this huge embankment wall, which was a tremendous cost. Then when we got up there, they required 2 platforms. Well, we can't come up from the north side, so now we have to go across and put 2 platforms in, and so we have to elevate up and over with a sky bridge and then come back down the other side, which is a tremendous build. On top of that, they have another area south that they decided, well, sometime in the future, which the future got to us at the 12th hour, for expanding their rail for 3 rails, so we had to cantilever over that so they could put a 3rd rail in to get to the 2 rails that are north. And we had to pay for all of that. So every time they put a roadblock in our way, I went and found more money to pay for all of this. Turnpike toll credits, FTA future monies, until we started, we started out at $6 million until we got to $11.2 million, okay? And so every time they did something, we went back, and then Amtrak wanted these platforms that was so long, you could have had 6 bowling alleys on them, all right? So we tried to shorten those down a bit to get off the bridges. And then comes along, the fire and rescue. They want stairs off the back of the platforms because we have elevators. So now we're going to put the stairs to get off the back of these things. How we're going to safeguard those? So we had to have a fire rescue area on these. I could go on and on and on about the things that they don't know about what they're speaking about. Okay, and there's no reason for them to know it's not their project. It's not as simple as painting murals on a wall.
That one's down now.
The Norfolk Southern has requirements that we weren't able to meet. Toledo had a train station already. It's one thing to renovate and build, and rebuild the train station on an existing area with existing leases. It's another thing to completely build something new without the existing leases and ground things that you didn't have before. That train station up there has been gone for decades and decades and decades. When we bought the Greyhound, the station there, I almost said Greyhound. We bought the train station. We did not buy what was up on the tracks. Remember that Norfolk Southern thought that those tunnels were backfilled and closed in the 50s.
Right.
When I contacted them, they were mortified to find out that those tunnels were still open. And we actually pay them money every year now to use those tunnels for storage. They still want to block them up and close them, and we've been fighting that. They were stunned that those tunnels hadn't been blocked up and backfilled for 50 years. There's a lot more going on here, Commissioners, than people understand. It's easy to be critical of other people.
Unfortunately, a lot of people think that people are getting on and off the train there at the transportation center when it's not there. It's over by the train station bar.
It's very scary.
It is very scary, ma'am, it is.
The drunks come out of the bar because the train comes in the middle of the night. If the train's late, then you're there even later.
Okay, we have to, yeah, we have to,
Thank you so much for
sure,
clarifying this.
sure,
The-
yeah.
and
And we
let me-
will do that. We just,
And let me
ma'am,
talk
with
to-
all due respect, we have to run the meeting up here, and we have
I'm
the
sorry.
public comment period, but we'll definitely discuss this with you after the meeting.
I
and-
engaged, my fault.
That's okay.
And let me talk to the bathroom issue. That was gonna be 30,000, that was 160-something thousand. It wasn't that I didn't want to put bathrooms in. We already have bathrooms. It was the issue that Amtrak doesn't want to pay for somebody to keep the center open. Okay, we already have bathrooms. When we built the transportation center, which started out as an intermodal center when they were very popular, okay, we put the bathrooms in the lobby area there. The thinking was at that time that when we had the full intermodal, people would be responsible for their operations. Amtrak doesn't want to give us money to operate that, to have somebody there to run that area for train service. So that's why we don't need more bathrooms. We need operating money to use the facility we got already. When it was designed, we were supposed to go through there, through the tunnels, up, which was the original way that the train station was configured. With Norfolk not allowing that, we had to now put a facility on the outside. But they could still use the lobby area and the bathrooms there, and then right before the train comes, they can leave the lobby, they can go up on the outside, up the wall, through the elevators. So why build another whole set of bathrooms? And because there's not going to be anybody there until 15 minutes before the train comes, there's not going to be people sitting in the lobby watching TV, doing anything, okay? So we don't need another set of bathrooms. These are things, so why pay another $160,000 to $180,000 for something that's not going to be used? All right, and then Amtrak doesn't want to pay for snow removal up on the platforms, security on the platforms. They've offered us like $25,000 a year to take care of all the maintenance on all of this. Can you imagine how much maintenance is on all of this? These are the things that are broken down.
How about
over
even
time.
an elevator maintenance contract costs what?
A couple thousand a year for each elevator, and there's 1, 2, 3 elevators.
Well, and I think it was probably irresponsible to make a public statement that the project's fully funded. It is not fully funded based upon all of the requirements that we're facing
have
moving
about
forward.
$500,000 sitting on the table as match money on it.
But money's not even really the issue. It's the indemnification that's the problem.
And I will tell you right now, and I've told you this when we were going down the road, I felt there was going to be significant cost overruns because there was unknowns. We're working in a live environment with lots of trains moving, double stackers moving, and there was a lot of unpredictability. I felt there was going to be significant cost overruns. I warned you 2 years ago to anticipate that. This was a project that I did not have a clear line of sight, a clear understanding about the end game, so be prepared for that. But we reach fatal defects in the contract. When somebody tells me there isn't fatal defects in the contract and they can get that done, then if you want to loop around and try to cobble it together, maybe we can, maybe we can't. Some of the funding's already gone. It's been swept down and moved out. ODOT came down. I showed it to you a year and a half ago, and they took some of our FTA funding and moved it out. I fought ODOT on that, but they moved it over to another transit agency. Some of that was the money that I had socked away from some. It was 2013 or 14 allocation money that I had hold up towards this project, because you can delay and move monies. It's a little complicated to explain, but remember I came to you and showed you that they had stripped some of that allocation out through ODOT and the FTA allocation. So can I get some future money pushed into that? Maybe. Okay, but until these defects are moved, Norfolk Southern will not have any more conversation until we can enter a contract. Can't enter a contract till the defects are gone.
Yeah, so I just, wanted to stress when we talk about, I was told that they were able to indemnify in Toledo and indemnify in Sandusky. Those are completely different situations. You're not comparing apples to apples and oranges to oranges. I challenge you to, not challenge you, encourage you rather, to go online and look at those stations, and you'll see, compared to the drawings of our plan and the way that we have to configure it, I just want to make sure that, the public understands that, as I've said in the paper, and I hate to repeat myself, but, we've exhausted every avenue possible. We've been supportive of this project here in Elyria, and but as the administrator pointed out, there's a severe legal fatal defect that we would have to agree to, which legal counsel says absolutely not, and the Attorney General says absolutely not. We've been in on the direct conversations, and with all due respect to the mayor, I respect her passion for wanting to do good things for the city of Elyria, but we've been in on those direct conversations, as we shared with you this morning, and we know how challenging they've been. We've been disappointed that the railroad continues to throw roadblocks, and once we remove those, they throw another 3 roadblocks in our way. And we did engage even the help of Senator Brown's office. And after several efforts by the senator's office, and believe me, he carries a lot of clout in Washington, D.C., I'm not directly quoting, but basically the conclusion was that basically told to go pound salt, and we're not going to work it out the way that you want to work it out, and we're going to stand our ground. So we've made every effort possible. I think the unfortunate thing is that the community doesn't know all the details of those conversations, which we shared with you this morning. And also, City Council doesn't know all the details. I had conversations with Councilwoman Mitchell yesterday, and also Mark Jesse, and Mark's probably the biggest advocate for the project, and just a great person to work with in the community. He and Donna Mitchell, and they both understood, I think, by the time we finished. Obviously, it's not the answer that they wanted to hear, but I think they had a greater understanding. We as a board, I guess, may have to decide whether we want to sit down with a couple council people so they better understand what's going on and get the correct information. And also, as I stated originally to the paper, which was not printed in the original story, I actually walked over to the mayor's office, walked into her office, had a direct conversation with her. We both don't remember exactly the time of the meeting because it was not a scheduled meeting. She believes it was in summer of last year. I believe it was in December or early this year. And was, very candid with her. Obviously, I see the mayor at a lot of community events, as we all do, and we talked about the project even at those community events, and I've stated over and over again what has taken place. So all I'm saying is that when you're not directly involved in the conversation, it's easy to speculate from the outside as to how something should be handled. I would also echo the administrator's position that I, too, have never seen Gerry Innes so frustrated. Maybe we've seen him when he's really frustrated and we're not around, but he's been extremely frustrated trying to deal with this. He's an extremely smart and bright individual, and if anybody can find a way to make it work, I'm sure he could. But the reality is you have to have a willing dance partner, somebody who's willing to work with you, and the railroad is not willing to work with us. So I think we've been responsible in this matter, but we will not expose the taxpayers to some open indemnity or indemnification issue, and the prosecutor's office won't allow us to do it, and neither will the Attorney General. And that's the bottom line.
Let me also close with this because we're still under my comments. I know how to get things done. On my watch, on behalf of the commissioners, I put up that Justice Center. I renovated that courthouse. I built a new 911, a new drug task force, multiple tens of millions of dollars of sewer projects, and the list goes on and on and on.
Health department.
We're assisting the health department, putting their building up. My team, your team, we know how to get things done. We built that transportation center from a building that had no walls on it, and it's a beautiful undertaking. We have torn down and renovated at least 30 buildings in the city of Elyria and beautified the downtown area. Okay, we know how to get things done. We don't just paint murals and criticize other people's work. This project has been frustrating. I consider it a personal failure that we couldn't get the railroad to do this, but it's beyond our control. It's easy to point at other people, okay, but we have done great works.
Agreed.
Yeah, we'll continue.
I think it's your comment now.
Yeah. And
Talk
I
about
do-
frustration.
I do have some comments regarding this. Number one, I would say I am more than willing to go to Elyria City Council and in an open meeting explain all of this. I'm not interested in any private meetings in which people then say we're disseminating false information and misstating what we have represented. I'll go to council. I don't think they're going to like my comments, but I'm more than willing to do that.
Please.
I would note, I've got an email here from John Edwards to Mayor Brunda, which is March 20th, 2019. Now, this is a year after we were under directive to get this project done and going. So this is a year after we were trying to do this, in which Mr. Edwards says, I am concerned that everyone is most focused on indemnification and insurance, but I don't want all the other things lost. And then he lists 6 more issues.
That came up that we didn't even know about.
Yeah, we didn't even know about it.
And we have been doing that for three years. Every time we thought we were done, then we get another thing with more things. And these 6 more issues were probably going to mean another $500,000 or $1 million of outlay from the Board of Commissioners, not knowing whether we were just throwing money down the drain. Now, I'm not trying to blame Norfolk Southern. I had some heart-to-heart conversations with Mr. Edwards. And, you know, what was apparent is the business people, and you know, the railroad is in the business of railroads. They understand the risks, they understand the liabilities, and they understand the problems better than we do. The business people for the railroad came to a conclusion that the liabilities and exposures and risks of this were something they had to get away from. And they were very clear, we don't want any exposure, you take it. Now, I may not be the smartest person in the world, but I'm smart enough to know when I don't know something. And when this expert business people are telling me they're getting away from this, that brings up a red flag to us. Now, is it possible that we could come through with some kind of legal manipulation to get around this? I can't say that's impossible. But what the city's forgetting is the reason for these rules, the purpose of having these limitations. And the reason is they don't, these are constitutional limitations that say they don't want a board now incurring liabilities and exposure for boards years and years and years and years, like what happened to us with the airport.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
You know, people started making commitments and doing anything without thinking about what happened. So maybe we could come up with a legal manipulation to get around this. But is that the responsible thing to do? I mean, I think it would be a sham, if not a scam, upon the taxpayers of Lorain County to try to come up with some maneuver to frustrate and avoid the purpose of the statute. And I think it's irresponsible and unethical for the Board of Commissioners to engage in that, like I said, that kind of scam upon the taxpayers. So that's where we are on this thing. Again, I repeat, I'll be more than happy to go to City Council and explain this whole thing from
One question.
top to bottom.
Did you not pose the question to the City of Elyria, would they accept the indemnification for this project?
Yes.
And what was their response?
The law director indicated to me that he didn't think it was legal for them to do it.
Beloved legal firms.
Now, had they accepted the indemnification, we could have worked vis-à-vis their indemnification, and we would be building a train station.
Obviously, if we can't, they can't,
Right.
legally.
Correct.
Right.
But if they would.
But we did pose the question to them, because we were looking for an entity to take the responsibility of the indemnification. So when Amtrak indicated first a willingness, then withdrew that willingness, we approached the city and asked them if they were willing, and their law director indicated that they were not legally able to take that indemnification either.
Well, if my colleagues are interested, I know I would like to take you up on your offer to speak with the Elyria City Council, and it looks like folks up here are nodding their heads. We would welcome that opportunity, Jerry, to really explain everything, and I think it would be very, very educational, very informative for the community and for council to better understand the circumstances.
Don't send me, I have a little too much passion.
Yeah, I think we'll keep Jim at home, but we'll send Jerry over.
Other than that, I have a number of pending legal matters
boy.
to discuss with
Okay.
you in an executive session.
Okay.
I'm not going to talk about my whole report because it was going to be too long, but last week, Commissioner Sweet and I went to check out all the artwork that was submitted by all the students throughout Lorain County from kindergarten through 12th grade for our calendar contest for solid waste department, and weren't they the
Oh, toughest job ever.
It is. It's really hard. There's so many good ones. So we picked out 13. So in a couple weeks, we'll be announcing those, and you'll all get a chance to see that.
And they're invited to one of our commissioner meetings
Right.
once they've been announced, so you'll get to see the artist as well.
Yeah. Friday night was a chairman's banquet with guest speaker Sherrod Brown, who we talked about earlier today, and they honored Beth Thames, who was Sherrod's right-hand girl for a long time, as long as I've known him. She's been around, and she always represented him so well. So she was honored, which, of course, she didn't even want to show up there. She hates that.
That's best. She's a peach.
She is. And then they also honored Glenn Lowry from Labor, and he's been a great guy to work with, done a lot of good things in Lorain County. Yesterday, Commissioner Sweet and I went to St. Jude School to watch Brandy Schnell from our solid waste department do her thing about recycling and reuse, reduce, and recycle. And the kids there just loved her. Yeah. What is it? Ricky the
This is
Raccoon?
Rocky the Recycling Raccoon.
Yeah.
We were with first graders,
Yeah,
which was so fun.
They were really fun. And then after that, we, like Sharon said earlier, we went to Neighborhood Alliance to sit down to hear all the good things that they're doing in Lorain County. And they have there's such a need here, and I'm just glad there's people like that with so much passion that want to help those in need. So, and then my report.
I just want to send out congratulations to Beth Thames and Glenn Lowry. Glenn's been very instrumental in Lorain County labor movement, and Beth Thames, just an amazing lady to work with. In fact, she's the one we worked closely with when we were dealing with the transportation station issue. But I'll tell you, Beth knows how to get things done. Sherrod Brown knows how to get things done, and it was a very nice evening. Also had the opportunity to attend the memorial service for Thelma Adams. Really enjoyed working with Thelma over all the years. I first got to meet her when I worked for the City of Elyria and worked for the Grace Administration, and I can tell you when Thelma called, everybody stepped to attention immediately, and she would still call me every once in a while here at the county and say, Matt, we got a problem, and she would continue to be
Never a loss to speak of.
Yeah, a strong advocate and a strong voice in the community, and she definitely will be missed, that's for sure. Also, just, I guess, wanted to add an additional thought. You may have read about the issue that surfaced with the legislation that took place in Columbus. I just want to say that, I'm obviously disappointed in Senator Manning and the way this was handled. We are elected and we're accountable to the public, and we've always had the appointing authority when it comes to those boards. And quite frankly, folks, when action takes place in Columbus and we lose our voice, your voice, you, the taxpayer, lose your voice as well, too. So it was disappointing. I've always had a great working rapport with the senator, and we will continue to work on other projects in the future. We've got some trust building to do, but we'll get it done. And I also wanted to add, I guess, that I've found that, board members weren't aware of it. And have also learned board members did not give authority to work on that. So I thought that was quite enlightening, and tremendous respect for the board members and their dedication to the community. I saw one of them sitting in the back room, and they certainly don't get paid anything to show up for these meetings and be involved and represent the community, but just a great group of people, and we interviewed a great group of people too. We continue to wait for the state to confirm its state appointments. Hopefully we'll get word on that soon. Once we do, with the state appointments, which there are 8 of the 18, then we'll set up our timeline for our announcement. But do want to make clear that the board is committed to the merger taking place July 1st, which also keeps us, or before, which keeps us in compliance with the law. Also, just wanted to add, I think everybody was quite stunned by the story on the front page of the papers today about the mayoral appointment in Lorain. This is just another example of how you have to pay attention to what's going on in Columbus and how decisions in Columbus impact all of us. I can't stress enough, there's no conspiracy going on here. That was a bill, I went back and looked at it, that I voted on in 2013. Dan Ramos voted on it. Thankfully, we both voted no. If we had voted yes, maybe we'd be hated in Lorain today. But we had both voted no. That was basically a bill that was going to make it difficult for the citizens of Ohio to bring a referendum initiative, a statewide initiative, make it more complicated for them to move forward and put something on the state ballot. And we were very disappointed and very upset with that. That became a partisan vote in Columbus. But it's just another example of how complex and constantly changing the Ohio Revised Code is. But it really hurts the community to claim that there's some type of conspiracy. I can guarantee you when we voted on that in 2013, Dan Ramos, myself, no one down there knew that this would boomerang and come back, 6 years later. And, and if it was a conspiracy, all I can say based upon the reactions I heard from everyone when they first found out about it and first saw the opinion from the prosecutor's office, they should all be receiving Academy Awards. And finally, I guess I just want to state, I hope the process will continue to be civil. I was really inspired by the comments I read in the paper this morning. This was by my former colleague, Dan Ramos, who stated, "My plan was to bring my vision forward, but I was never running against anyone. I was just running for it. It wasn't Team Dan versus Team this or Team that. As far as I'm concerned, we're all on Team Lorain. If I'm the candidate, my intention would be to run alongside them as a ticket." And I wouldn't expect anything less from Dan Ramos. He's a class guy, and we just need unity, people to work together to advance our largest city in the county. And please, let's put a stop to the conspiracy theories. That ends my comments.
On Friday, in addition to the Chairman's Ball, I do want to add that they did also recognize Lorain County Rising, which is a young group out of Oberlin that's doing a great job with, basically, they jump into campaigns, elections. They are a nonpartisan group, but they stand for issues. They do a lot of postcard writing, and they really had a massive get out the vote effort that they implemented for the most recent election, and they were recognized for the hard work that they do as well. I also had the opportunity to attend the U.S. Global Leadership Coalition luncheon last Friday. Mr. Romancak was there with me as well. And it's a coalition that is comprised of business people, corporations, nonprofits, veterans, with who have a strategic goal of investing in American diplomacy. They're obviously quite concerned about the status of American diplomacy throughout the world right now. And Senator Sherrod Brown was the keynote speaker. He did a very good job of basically isolating where some of our concerns are, some of the areas that are under threat is so far as American diplomacy. And the coalition basically is responsible for creating programs that are a keystone of, or intended to be a keystone of U.S. foreign policy. And they're feeling that that alignment is a little bit under threat right now. On Saturday evening, there was an organized meeting, social for the Lorain County Young Dems in Amherst. That was a well-attended social event. Monday evening, I was able to attend Lorain County Rising's monthly meeting, and they're already starting to schedule and organize all of their voter registration events, and where they will have volunteers helping the to register new voters, so that once the election comes in November, we may see all our youngest new voters and those who have fallen off the voting records back on those list of capable voters. I also attended the memorial for Thelma Adams, and I think she's an inspiration to the entire community. I felt a little saddened by the fact I didn't have the opportunity to have a greater relationship with her, but was surprised that when I got home and spoke about it, my husband said, I worked with Thelma a long
Really?
time. Yes, and she was a smart lady. She was always on top of it, and she was very good to him when she was representing the city in her capacity in the building department over there. I think that's the department she was in. I do want to send out my condolences to the candidates who are being removed from the ability to keep their name in the nomination for that appointment in Lorain. I know that they all put out a very strong effort to campaign, to solicit the support of the precinct people. I want to thank those precinct captains. Last night I thought it had to be the very first night they had a good night's sleep in about three weeks, and now I know they're probably biting their nails again because they're amping up for another round of this. And those folks really have had the challenges this year. So again, my condolences to those who are not going to be capable of staying in that appointment race, and the precinct chairs for the hard work that they're doing. Lastly, in regard to the board merge, I will make just a small correction on your comment, Commissioner Lundy. I have been told that there may have been a board member or two who did facilitate some of the contact with Senator Manning. So I don't really think we know all of the specifics yet. We just know that we were taken aback by the fact that nobody thought it was important to have a conversation with us about removing authority that the commissioners in all of Ohio maintain, short of the action to remove it from our Board of Commissioners.
Normally, directors operate with the authority of the board, so.
Right. It was not a
point I was
board
trying to make. It
action
was not a
at
board
all,
action.
by any means.
And then, and I don't want things to shadow the good work of and the dedicated board people because someone went off without authority to
Right,
Can I add
to
something?
take
a
action.
rogue effort or two.
Sure.
We've spoke to this before, but we haven't spoken to it a lot. And I think it needs to be repeated. So if it's redundant, I apologize. The code is clear on this. The new board has all the responsibilities of the two prior boards. Everything continues. Nothing stops. So to say that all this work has to be done so that people receive services, it's smoke and mirrors. It's dribble. It will continue. It has to continue. The law says it continues. Unless somebody's planning on violating the law, it'll continue on. When they cleaned this up, because prior to 2013 it had different requirements, and there was the need to sit down and come up with a plan and come up with, it was a bit of a mess, and they cleaned it up. And they cleaned it up by simplifying it, by making it easy. And I'm paraphrasing it because I don't have it in front of me, but it basically says all the authorities, responsibilities, and obligations of the former two boards. That makes it easy. That means everything continues.
Transfers, right?
Right. The hardest thing is when the new board meets, they have to come up with a chair of that board to move the board forward. but everything moves forward. You don't have to worry about whether a blood transfusion that's halfway in place stops and they pull the needle out of your arm, you don't get the rest of the transfusion. It keeps going. And I don't know why certain people have chosen to make it much more difficult and give people anxieties and fears that they did not need to have. Did not need to have. Because we're supposed to make it easy. We're supposed to reassure those people, not give them anxiety and fears. And some people have chosen to raise anxiety and fears for whatever agenda they may have had. And this board spent a lot of time trying not to do those things. And let me also point out, because we haven't said this, we knew about this
Political maneuver.
long before we spoke about it, long before. We never said a word. We did not want to fight. We did not bring it forward. We knew for several weeks, more than several weeks, and we together, and speaking individually, speaking in hallways, decided that it wasn't worth the fight until we got an unprovoked attack, and we got a big article in the paper, and I said to you, we need to go tell our side of the story, because we did not want to fight. We did not want to provoke more angst, more anxiety, and so we remained quiet until somebody
Ironically said we were being political with our appointments that we
We were.
hadn't made yet, and
So-
that we weren't being transparent, and that was probably the most political move I've seen since I've been here.
But we didn't find out about the day before we went,
No.
or 2 days before we went. We
We've
knew
known.
about it for weeks,
Right.
weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. But in order not to have the fight, in order to have an orderly transfer,
Right.
we decided not to deal with it until somebody decided to take some umbrage with us and poke at us for no reason. So I just want to point it out, that the board has done everything it can to make this an orderly, non-confrontational process to move forward. And we continue to be confronted with, for reasons I don't understand. Everything will be fine. It will progress. Services will continue. Those people that have needs, those needs will continue to be fulfilled. It will not be difficult. There'll be some slight changes. There'll be a little bit of rearrangement of the agencies. I have confidence in these board members. They are good people. There will be good people on this board. The board will be even stronger and better going forward now that they're united. It's going to be okay.
It is.
We have to let the troublemakers not make trouble.
Well, I did call the county commissioners, I had a lobbying task force meeting with the County Commissioners Association on Friday, and I didn't want to put it out there with everybody on the phone because it only affects Lorain County, this change that they tried to make. So I did talk to them after my conference call and told them what had happened, what had transpired. They were not aware of it, but I just wanted them to be aware, so in case they try to come up with some more shenanigans between now and the time that we do make the appointment. So they are on alert that things are happening that shouldn't be happening. And it just amazes me because both of these boards and their directors know that we have never interfered with these boards ever.
I know.
Ever. We've not tried to interfere. We don't do services. So we look to them to do what's right. So it just amazes me that this has gone on the way it has, and it's very disheartening.
Well, and I think, again, in support of that, Commissioner Kokoski, we have made it clear from day one that we had one responsibility, and that was to appoint the new board. Everything moving forward will become the work of the new board, not the commissioners in the new board, not the commissioners first. We have no say, we have no directive. We are simply appointing board members from recommendations, I must say. So with that, on that little happy note, I'm going to close my report. Thank you.
Board correspondence.
I would make the motion that the reading be waived.
Second?
Mr. Lundy,
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Ms. Sueda.
Aye.
Okay, well, seeing no other business at this time, I would move that we go into executive session for the reasons stated by the county administrator and the assistant county prosecutor.
Second?
Mr. Lundy,
Aye.
Ms.
Aye.
Kowski. Ms. Sueda.
Aye.
This has been a broadcast of the recent Lorain County Commissioners' General Meeting. Unless otherwise announced, meetings are held Wednesday morning at 9:30 at the Administration Building, 226 Middle Avenue, 4th floor, downtown Elyria. These are public meetings, and you are invited to attend. Agendas are posted prior to the meeting at www.loraincounty.us. Click on Departments to see the Commissioners page, then click on View Agenda for a printable copy of the agenda.